The bus topology is the oldest and simplest of all the topologies. The way that we used to set up networks was something like this. We simply had a long cable, and maybe it would run around the room or something. It was usually a coaxial cable. So this is an earlier form. This is before we used a twisted pair. Each of these computers was tied into this cable, either through a connector like this, where you would actually cut the cable, put this connector in, and then connect the cable here and then the computer off of here, or something called a vampire tap, where these claws would claw into the cable and make the connections. So the thing is that when this computer over here, let's call this PC1, decides to transmit, that signal is going to come up this cable, and it's going to go both directions down this coaxial cable. And that means that everybody's going to hear it. It's going to go up here, it's going to continue on down here. Every other PC, every other computer, every other printer, everybody's going to hear it. Now at the ends of this cable are big resistors that actually absorb the signal so that it doesn't bounce back and create this echo effect. But other than at the ends here, everybody hears that signal. The only way that these computers know who it belongs to is by the address on that frame. So it would look for the MAC address and say, oh, that MAC address isn't me, so I'll just ignore it, and it would just drop the frame. Now when the device whose MAC address is addressed in that frame gets it, it would then say, oh yes, that's for me, and it would listen to the message. There's a problem with this, and that problem is something we call contention. This is a collision domain. So that means that if two of these computers happen to broadcast at the same time, we have something that looks like this. So this computer sends a message, this computer sends a message, they're both traveling down the wire in both directions, and kabam, the two messages collide. So how do we get out of that? Well, this is what Ethernet was actually designed for. Ethernet was actually designed for only wired cables, and it had built into it a protocol called CSMA-CD, Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Detection. So let's think about what that means. Carrier Sense means that these computers are capable of sensing this wire to see if there's any traffic on the wire. Multiple access is pretty obvious here. I have multiple computers accessing this wire. Collision detection means that these computers are capable, since they are capable of sensing, they're capable of listening and determining when there is a collision. So CSMA-CD calls out the following set of steps. First of all, if this guy, PC1 over here, wants to send a message, it's going to just listen for a clear cable. Is there any traffic on the cable? If there is no traffic on the cable, it will begin to send the frame. So the device sends the frame. Now, it may happen that both of these guys were listening at the same time, and they both thought that it was clear to send, and so they both send the message, and a collision now occurs. If that happens, these computers are going to sense that collision, and they're going to send out a high voltage, just slam this thing. We call that a jamming signal. Once a jamming signal goes out and all of the computers hear that jamming signal, they will stop it dead in their tracks, stop sending anything, and back up and set a random interval timer. Once the interval has completed for each individual computer, it's going to be different for each computer because it was randomly set for each one. So as each computer's random timer expires, it will, if it wants to transmit, will listen again, and if it wants to transmit and it's clear, of course, for whichever the first one is going to be clear because it's the first one, but it will go ahead and send the message, and it all starts all over again. Now there is a problem here, and that is that once this network gets too big, if I add very many computers, I get more than 20-30 computers on this thing, it's going to slow down dramatically. because as I add computers, the number of collisions will increase quite a bit because I've got more competition for this wire. We call that contention. So that's how the bus topology works. Now, as far as physical and logical topologies, this is both a physical bus and a logical bus. Now, later on, we'll have some topologies that are physical something else, but logical bus. So we'll see that later.